As the spooky name suggests, it's a secret society. Once upon a time, it even challenged the animal Archon himself.
And then you have this. When you're in the metagamer mode, and they give you lore. Part 1, the story of the Boar Princess. In 1.0, we were given a book series called The Boar Princess by Hoyo. This series has long been suspected to be a codified version of a real story in the style of Nahida's Black Cat story about Scaramouche. Now, in 4.7, the game has finally given us some clues about the secrets of the Boar Princess story. Long story short, in the 1.0 book series, the wolf pup was cursed by a squirrel wizard to be cold-hearted. He started to behave badly and was exiled from the Boar Kingdom. The Boar Princess, upon hearing of a cold-hearted wolf pup, set off to make friends out of it alongside her two other friends, a turtle and a fox. However, the ice in the wolf pup's heart was not to be melted by anything else, so the Boar Princess proceeded to kill her two friends, the turtle and the fox, to feed the wolf pup and melt his cold, dead heart. It worked. The ice in the wolf pup's heart melted. Thus, the Boar Princess and the wolf pup went off to live happily ever after. Except that's not really the true story, as we are shown in Imaginarium theater itself. After all, it's only an analogy, and a fairy tale version at that. The truth is, not everything has a happy ending. And Wolfie is the wolf pup. Because friendship warms his stomach, and well, Wolfie is a wolf, while everything in the Imaginarium theater domain has the Boar Princess in it. When you pick buffs in Imaginarium theater, there are some illustrations that are highly suspicious. For one, in this picture right here, the wolf pup was standing right next to the turtle and the fox, suggesting that they did, in fact, know each other beforehand and not strangers. In another picture, the wolf pup met up with the Boar Princess in the palace, so the princess and the wolf also knew each other before the event. Lastly, the wolf pup is shown in one of the Imaginarium theater illustrations to be lured by the squirrel wizard by something before he got cursed. So, what was the full, actual story of the Boar Princess and the wolf pup? To discover the truth, we need to analyze the scattered clues in the room itself. During the course of the Unbegun, unending story quest, the game will force you to explore the room and interact with certain objects before you can proceed. There are 3 key texts hidden in the interactables here that give us clues to the actual story of the wolf pup. The first clue is this item here, which quotes Goethe's Faust. More specifically, it quotes the exact line where Faust made a deal with Mephistopheles to stop the moment of perfect happiness. If Faust ever achieved his goal of gaining perfect happiness, then Mephistopheles would have his soul. Hence, a Faustian bargain. It's also notable to mention that Faust and Mephistopheles also visited the witches' gathering at Walpurgisnacht, or Witches' Night, which, in German folklore, is the gathering of the witches on the Brocken Mountain. In real life, it's a story to explain the Brocken specter phenomenon, but in Faust, it's a representation for sins and the temptation of the devil, Mephistopheles toward Faust. If you're a fan of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, you will probably find all of this very familiar.
どうしてなの？何度やってもあいつに勝てない。繰り返せばそれだけまどかの因果が増える。
In any case, in effect, the story of the wolf pup, Wolfie, was compared to the story of Faust here, with Gretchen in the role of the Boar Princess, the turtle and the fox as Gretchen's mother and brother, who were killed by Gretchen and Faust to hide their relation. If the Goethe-Faust reference stays close to the original play, then we can roughly speculate that the Boar Princess Gretchen died after the Boar Princess event. Naturally, we can also guess that Wolfie was lured by Mephistopheles' squirrel and made a Faustian bargain right around this pick. But who are the Mephistopheles squirrel and the witches at Walpurgisnacht? This is where it starts to get funky. The second clue showing the truth behind the Boar Princess story is the interactable closet in the unbegun, unending story quest. The lion in the closet is an obvious reference to the lion Jesus Aslan in Narnia. More specifically, it's a reference to how the children traveled to another world, Narnia, through their closet. Among the children, Edmund, who started to have behavioral problems after transferring to a new school, later betrayed his family to the White Witch for a piece of enchanted Turkish delight. In the first book of the Narnia series, he went to the White Witch's palace and was effectively held hostage there until his family and Aslan the Lion Jesus came to rescue him, causing Aslan's death in the process. The reference to Narnia is repeated again when you try to look outside the windows of the domain, which only shows snow. Hence, Wolfie is Edmund in the White Witch's castle after making a Faustian bargain with the White Witch. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting. C.S. Lewis based the Edmund plot on an older story by Hans Christian Andersen, The Snow Queen. Similar to Edmund in Narnia, Kay, one of the two protagonists of The Snow Queen, was cursed by the Snow Queen to be cold-hearted, with a shard of mirror in his heart. Like the wolf pup in the Boar Princess story, Kay started to act cruelly to his friend Gerda and his family. Like Edmund, he was lured to the Snow Queen's palace, where pure white snow reigned as a result. With the ice in his eyes and his heart, Kay could only see the snow as beautiful. This set off a chain of events where Gerda went on a quest to melt the ice in his heart, like how the Boar Princess went on a quest to melt the ice in the wolf pup's heart. However, different from the Boar Princess cannibalism ending, Gerda's tears managed to melt the ice in Kay's heart, and then they went off to live happily ever after. By the way, Anders' daughter, the writer of the Boar Princess story, is a blatant reference to Andersen. Andersen is literally Anders' son, and Anders' daughter is literally Anders' daughter. So yeah, the Boar Princess is a very obvious mix and match combo of Andersen's Snow Queen, C.S. Lewis's Narnia, and Goethe's Faust. Of course, this begs the question, who is Mephistopheles? Who is the squirrel? Who is the White Witch and the Snow Queen? Who are the witches in Faust's Walpurgisnacht? Why, of course they're the Hexenzirkel, the witches gathering on Brocken Mountain, the witches who have been sealing Wolfie in their snowy palace, whom Wolfie made a wish to at the cost of an impossible price. The third clue showing us the truth behind the Boar Princess story is the book series The Little Witch and the Undying Fire, co-authored by the Hexenzirkel. Each witch writes a part of the series, and their identities can easily be guessed by the descriptions of each book. In the achievement for Imaginarium Theater, it was revealed that Anders' daughter, or M, could see dreams and memories, and that her power was to make a fantasy truth into a true fantasy. In effect, Anders' daughter was likely to be the one who used her power of mixing dreams and memories into true fantasy to keep Wolfie asleep forever. In addition to Anders' daughter's involvement in the Wolfie plot, Rhindaughter, also known as Gold, also known as Albedo's mom, also known as the alchemist of Kenria during the Cataclysm, was the one who wrote the story about the Chipmunk Demon Lord. The story she wrote bears strong resemblance to the Boar Princess story, with the Little Witch in the place of the Boar Princess, fighting a Chipmunk Demon Lord by sacrificing her companions one by one. Now, this story has been heavily edited by the witches to become part of the Little Witch series, the plot of which is about the Hexenzirkel's collective self-insert, the Little Witch, traveling around on an adventure, meeting Barbalatha's self-insert the fortune teller, and ending up with the master of the story, Anders' daughter, dying and becoming the undying flame. However, even though the story was heavily edited to fit the Little Witch's adventure, it still contained critical information about the Genshin world and relevant to the conversation here about the Chipmunk Lord. Also known as the Squirrel Wizard in the Boar Princess story, the Chipmunk Demon Lord was actually an alchemical construct. Thus, slowly and slowly, we have pieced together the truth behind Boar Princess story. Once upon a time, there was a boar kingdom where the animals lived together. The boar princess, the turtle, the fox, and the wolf pup were all friends. But one day, the wolf pup was lured by the squirrel wizard, which was actually an alchemical construct by someone else. He ate the proverbial Turkish delight and got cursed with ice in his heart, turning him cruel. As a result, he was exiled by the kingdom to a cold tundra, getting into fights with other wolves, one of which is named White Fang. This will be important later. Subsequently, the boar princess went off to find him in the tundra alongside the turtle and the fox. At the end, to melt the ice in the wolf's heart, the boar princess killed her two friends and fed them to the wolf pup, melting the ice in his heart. Except, the ending of the boar princess adventure was a lie to children. The boar princess did not manage to melt the wolf's heart. The story segued into Goethe's Faust at this point, as the wolf made a Faustian bargain with the Hexenzirkel, who were the Mephistopheles, the Walpurgis, the White Queen, and the Snow Queen of the boar princess story. And then he was whisked away to the domain room we found him in, built by the Hexenzirkel as a crypt to forever seal the wolf in his dream, an unending dream, never to wake up again, the moment of perfect happiness frozen forever in time. And presumably, Gretchen, who was the boar princess, got executed and died afterwards like in Goethe's Faust. However, Wolfie's wish was not granted without a steep price. What was the price he paid? And why did the Hexenzirkel go out of their way to grant his wish? And biggest mystery of all, what was the Boar Kingdom? Answer: the Boar Kingdom was the Seelie Kingdom. Part 2. The History of Teyvat and the Fall of the Seelie. Before we delve deeper into the details, let's go over a quick recap of Genshin World's history. According to the Narcissenkreuz classification, the world of Genshin is stuck in a samsara and has gone through 3.5 cycles as of the Sumeru Archon quest. The 4 cycles are Hyperborea, Natlantian, Remuria, and Cronaria. Currently, we are at the first half of the 4th cycle. It's unclear how the Narcissenkreuz divided the samsara into 4 cycles, but it is generally assumed that the 4 cycles correspond to 4 descenders. Hence, we are the 4th descender in the first half of the 4th cycle. Consequently, the 4 cycles can be roughly mapped to the previous 3 descenders, Hyperborea for fans and his Greek-inspired Kingdom of Light, Natlantian for the second who came and the introduction of the Abyss, and Remuria for the third. According to the loading screen and Arama in the Aranara quest, the Seelie were once a race who taught humans about nature and speech. In contrast, the modern Seelie were cursed to wither away, leaving behind an empty husk that guides people to treasures in exchange for leading them back to their Seelie court. The reason why they were cursed were never explained in plain terms, but we have had quite a few contextual clues to the event itself through the Paradise Lost set, Apep, the Drunkard's Tale, and now, the Boar Princess story. Going back to the very beginning, from before the sun and the moon, we learned that the Genshin world was originally ruled by 7 dragon kings and divided into 7 nations. Fans arrived and created 4 shades to subdue the 7 dragon kings, gaining control of the 7 nations. After their victory, fans and the 4 shades terraformed Teyvat. From the goddess of flowers Nabu Malakata's testimony in the Paradise Lost set and Apep's explanation in Nahida Quest 2, presumably in the interval between the first cycle Hyperborea and the second cycle Natlantian. To rebel against fans' rules, the Dragon King Nibelung summoned the second who came, who powered up Nibelung, but also transferred forbidden knowledge to Teyvat. This is later known as the Abyss Power. Despite the power-up from the second who came, Nibelung was defeated again and killed. But not permanently, because he will return, according to Apep's yapping. After the war, Apep tried to look for traces of forbidden knowledge remaining on Teyvat to await Nibelung's return, while the rest of the dragons either hid away in the Dark Sea or agreed to cooperate with Celestia. However, the story doesn't end there for Celestia. You see, in the Hyperborea era, the Seelie used to be the divine envoys who guided humans directly under Celestia's order, as testified by the Tiara set and the Fall of Remuria book. Presumably at the tail end of the Natlantian era or the start of the Remuria era, inspired by Nibelung's rebellion, the Seelie decided to rebel against heaven, a la Paradise Lost style. Unfortunately, like Milton's Paradise Lost, they, lost, got nailed, and fell down to Tevat. Their connections to heaven were severed, and they were cursed to wither away, slowly becoming empty husks. This is very one-to-one to the story of the boar tribe that Wolfy told us about. Hence, boar tribe is a stand-in for the Seelie race. Although, obviously, there have always been exceptions to this curse. For example, there was the goddess of flowers Nabu Malakata herself, who managed to resist the curse until she got nailed and died for real during Dishret's rebellion. In the current patch, Wolfy clarified to us that there were actually two types of punishments for the boar Seelie. One group was the rabbits, who chose to wither away into empty husks that are the modern Seelie, and the other group was the wolves, who obviously didn't become modern Seelie, but became something else.
魔法少女でも魔女でもなく、一体どこにたどり着こうとしてるんだ。そうね。確かに今の私は魔女ですらない。あの神にも等しく聖なるものを貶めて蝕んでしまったんだもの。そんな真似ができる存在はもう悪魔とでも呼ぶしかないんじゃないかしら。
And of course, there is the exception among exceptions, Nicole.
You sound lost and confused. I know why you are troubled. Any who knew of this would find their mind overwhelmed.
Who traded her voice away instead and is now a Hexenzirkel member, the one that spoke directly into people's heads. So yeah, the Boar Princess, Wolfie, and Nicole were all Seelie, like Nabu Malakata. But how did Nibelung's rebellion inspire the Seelie rebels? And why were there different outcomes for the two groups of Seelie? Nicole aside, the answer lays in Nabu Malakata's and Rhindotter's testimonies. According to Nabu Malakata, she taught Dishret the forbidden knowledge for his golden slumber plan as a rebellion against Celestia. This is later confirmed again by Apep, who swallowed Dishret's corpse in an attempt to gain more forbidden knowledge, which led to Apep being infected by the Abyss Power herself. So this begs the question, how did Nabu Malakata, as an ex-Seelie, get a hold of forbidden knowledge, the Abyss Power, in the first place? Remember when Naba told us that the Seelie were inspired by Nibelung's rebellion? And when the Paradise Lost set is an obvious reference to Milton's Paradise Lost, putting the Seelie-turned wolves as analogies to the fallen angels and hell in Paradise Lost. And remember when Rhyndotter told us that the Chipmunk Demon Lord, also known as the Squirrel Wizard in the Boar Princess story, was actually an alchemical construct? And Wolfie got cursed with the ice in his heart after he swallowed the Squirrel Wizard, in a similar vein to Chio, Iai's friend that got corrupted by the Abyss Power and turned against Iai after she was swallowed by Rhyndotter's alchemical construct during the Cataclysm? Thus, the answer has revealed itself to us, like the angel rebels in Paradise Lost, and like Chio during the Cataclysm, the wolf faction of the Seelie got corrupted by the Abyss Power, highly likely while fighting against the second who came's Abyss force during Nibelung's rebellion. Hence, why Nabu Malakata specifically stated that the invaders brought about the illusion that could break through shackles to the land, igniting the rebellion against Celestia among the Seelie rank. So roughly, we can piece together the story of the Boar Seelie as such. During the war against the second who came and Nibelung, one faction of the Seelie, which happened to include the Wolf Pup and Nabu Malakata, got corrupted by the abyss they were fighting against. The Hyperborea era ended, and the Natlantian era began, when divine envoys guided the Tiara civilizations. During this period, the Sustainer was very trigger-happy and nailed every single civilization that dared to study about fans and the Abyss, especially the civilizations that used Thierminsel to do that. Looking at you, Sal Vindagner and Underground Sarumi. After an unknown amount of time, the Seelie staged their rebellion and lost. The boar princess, probably someone of high rank among the Seelie, killed her fellow Seelie to feed the wolf pup and was presumably executed at around this time. The master, presumably the sustainer here, punished them with 2 different curses for 2 different groups. One faction became rabbits, the modern Seelie, while the other faction were exiled from heaven and turned into wolves, or, using the Milton analogy, demons. The wolves lost their heavenly bodies upon being kicked out of heaven, but they kept their minds relatively intact. Abyss corruption aside, at least they didn't become empty husks. With the fall of the divine envoys, the Natlantean era where civilizations were guided by the Seelie came to an end, ushering in the beginning of the Remuria era, which is probably coded for the Archon War era. However, on Teyvat, the wolves did not stop their activities against Celestia. Some of them, and by that I mean Nabu, spread some more forbidden knowledge to Deshret for the Golden Slumber plot, kickstarting the corruption of the Irminsul tree, again, and the Eliezer disease in Sumeru. Overall, that's the long story short of Nabu's adventure on Teyvat, but what happened to Wolfie after the rebellion? Why did the Hexenzirkel agree to grant his wish? And most importantly, what price did he pay to them? Part 3. The Witch's Faustian Bargain and the Identity of Wolfie. Now, unlike the Seelie Kingdom story, which has a lot of supporting evidences from Nabu and Apep, the following part has very little clues for us to decipher the truth in a conclusive manner. As such, Part 3 is a smite bit speculative. So that's a disclaimer I would like to be clear on before we don the tinfoil hat together for Part 3. From the reference to Faust and by Wolfie's own admission, the actions of the Boar Princess did not really cure Wolfie of his icicle heart like in the Boar Princess book. Like Faust and Narnia, Wolfie, in the role of Faust and Edmund, made a Faustian bargain with the witches. However, it wasn't exactly a straightforward timeline like Day 1, the Boar Princess fed Wolfie. Day 2, Wolfie made the deal with the witches. Instead, from Wolfie's dreams of his own memories, albeit mangled memories to turn into a true fantasy, we learned that after the Boar Princess event, Wolfie continued to wander around in cold tundra, getting into fights with another wolf called White Fang, before finally meeting the witches. The location itself, Tundra, gives us 3 possible locations for where Wolfie was when he met the witches. The first possible location is around the area of the Seelie Palace, as depicted in the Drunkard's Tale way back in 1.0. In the tale, a drunkard bard, Venti, and a lone wolf, Andreas, roleplayed the meeting between the first Seelie and a lone wolf, Andreas. So Andreas came from the same general region around the Seelie Palace before moving to Mondstadt and freezing the land to create another tundra. The second possible location is Mondstadt itself, which, well, used to be tundra when Andreas froze it. The third possible location is Snezhnaya, which is presumably also cold. But we will leave that one aside for now due to lack of information. And also because of White Fang, who is probably Andreas himself. With the whole theme of Seelie turning into wolves, and how Andreas specified many times that he had to fight against other wolves for dominance, it's not too out there to assume that Andreas is White Fang. And if this assumption is true, then that would push forward either Mondstadt or the Seelie Palace, which is actually near Mondstadt anyway, to be the location Wolfie was at when he met the witches. While we don't have much information from Wolfie's side about that period, the witches' side, namely, Rheindotter, Alice, and Albedo gave us more details on their activities in the general area of Mondstadt.
Once upon a time, it even challenged the animal Archon himself, but he replied, "Let us make music, not war, and resolve our conflicts through song." From then on, the mages would only ever convene in the woods, in the skies, or on the edges of cliffs.
Namely, the Hexenzirkel tried to attack Venti before, but they made peace because Venti was secretly anti-Celestia or something, and that Rheindotter found the heart of Nibirius right before dropping Albedo off at Mondstadt. The thing is, Nibirius is a wolf, with his heart taken by a witch of the Hexenzirkel, also known as the Genshin version of Walpurgis. And oh wow, Look at this accidental creation of Rhine-Daughter. Oh yeah. To be clear, Rhine-Daughter has created many other experiments that don't look like wolves, namely Albedo 1 and Albedo 2, who were created before the heart of Nibirius was discovered. But it is almost certain that Rhine-Daughter did, in fact, go home to Kenria and did some further research on the item afterwards. The flag Albedo setup seems to hint that the heart of Nibirius itself is related to how the cataclysm started. Nevertheless, the stronger connection between Wolfie, Nibirius, and the Abyss Wolves lies in the Lesser Key of Solomon. In the Lesser Key of Solomon, Nibirius is a Marquis of Hell, buffing people in arts and science. His design was based on the Cerberus, and so he had 3 dog heads. Johannes were argued that Nibirius is, in fact, Cerberus. Although this was not unanimously agreed upon by all authors, just by looking at his design, you can already see that Nibirius is definitely based on Cerberus, the Greek 3-headed dog who guards the gate of hell. Similar to the Nibirius in the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Abyss Wolves that Gold, accidentally, created also have 3 heads, and their job is also to push the boundary between the Abyss and Tevat to open the way for the Abyss Force. So from the Lesser Key of Solomon, we have a reasonably solid connection between Nibirius and Gold's Abyss Wolves. The notable thing here is that Rhine-Daughter was inspired from the Rhine-Daughters in Wagner's The Ring Cycle. In Das Rheingold, the cursed Rheingold that caused the tragedy was originally in the possession of the Rhine-Daughters. But the problem began when Alberich the Dwarf stole it and started the chain reaction. Piecing together the clues about Nibirius and Wagner's Ring Cycle, the story of the cataclysm likely went somewhere as such. After Rhine-Daughter found the heart of Nibirius, she took it back to Kenria for some experiments. However, the experiment went wrong midway, likely because the Alberich meddled or something, and the curse of the Abyss in the heart of Nibirius manifested itself in the form of the Abyss Wolves. Hence, she unintentionally created the Abyss Wolves and not intentionally created them like how she created Alina's, Durin, and Albedo 1 and 2. Presumably, at that moment, the Abyss Wolves started to spread the Abyss curse everywhere in Kenria after that, including Gold's many different alchemical constructs, triggering mass death everywhere. In response, the Sustainer, the Archons, Sans Rukadevada, and their human entourage were sent in, leading to even more people getting hit with the Abyss corruption in the process, like Chio, Takamine the owner of Mist Splitter, the Bloodstained Knight, and Kitsune Saige. Hence, this means that the heart of Nibirius was the Rheingold, an object cursed by the Abyss, like a cursed icicle heart of a certain wolf who made a Faustian bargain with the witches to freeze his time forever. What did Wolfie trade away for his wish to come true? What happened to Edmund after he ate the Turkish delight? What happened to Kay after he broke the mirror in the Snow Queen? So yeah, Wolfie is Nibirius, an ex-Seelie who turned into a wolf, and he traded away his iced heart cursed with the Abyss corruption for an unending dream. Effectively, you can sum up Wolfie's whole adventure in the Genshin world as such. Once upon a time, the to-be-wolf Seelie fought in the war against Nibelung and the Second Who Came, getting himself and a bunch of other Seelie corrupted in the process. Due to the war, the Sustainer went a bit stir-crazy and started nailing every civilization messing around with the Abyss power in sight. The Seelie, who played the role as the divine envoys guiding those nailed human civilizations, got a bit mad, literally, over time, and staged a rebellion. At around this time, the Boar Princess, who should be a reasonably highly ranked Seelie or the Seelie Princess, started feeding Wolfie with the other Seelie, in the hope that they would turn him back to pre-Abyss version. The rebellion failed in the Paradise Lost way, and all of the Seelie got punished by the Sustainer, albeit with 2 different methods. One group who didn't get corrupted by the Abyss just got cursed to wither away over time to be the modern Seelie. The group corrupted by the Abyss, which included Nabu Malakata and Nibirius, who should be Wolfie, and probably many more characters we have already been introduced to in-game, got kicked out of heaven and became demons, losing their original Seelie form. Some members of the demon group kept their human forms, like Nabu Malakata, while others like Nibirius, and likely Andreas, turned into wolves. The golden bee god Sibylla who gave Remus the prophecy should also belong to the demon group. The Natlantean era came to a close. The Remuria era, which should be the Archon War, began. After being kicked out of Celestia, Nibirius wandered around a tundra, which should be either the Seelie Palace or Mondstadt itself, and got into fights with Whitefang, who should be Andreas. Remus built his civilization, Remuria, and then that died too alongside the Remuria era, ushering in the current cycle, Chronaria, the Archon rule. Nibirius continued to wander around aimlessly, undying, and likely mindlessly too, if Sibylla was any indication, until around 500 years ago, when Rheindotter and Albedo ran into him. Rheindotter and the collective Hexenzirkel made a collective deal with him. They will put him to sleep forever, in exchange for his cursed heart. Barbeloth made him a room, and Andersdotter weaved for him an eternal dream. Nibirius then fell into an eternal sleep. In his dream, sometimes he became a cat in the feline firm, sometimes he relived his memories through the boar princess dream. Meanwhile, in reality, Rheindotter experimented with his heart, until either she or the Alberich did an oopsie and accidentally created the Abyss Wolves, triggering the start of the Cataclysm. And the funny thing is, Remus is also heavily tied to the figure of Cerberus and Nibirius. Wriothesley, who is basically his modern parallel, also guarded the boundary between Teyvat and Hell, the primordial sea. And Remus also quoted the exact same quote from Faust, signifying a Faustian bargain was also going on with Remus. I actually initially thought that Remus was Nibirius, but the release of Wolfy and specifically the Hexenzirkel's room convinced me that Wolfy is the real Nibirius, while Remus is probably just his twin, Cerberus. Looking back, it was kinda obvious. Because Remus didn't make a deal with any witch, he made a deal with Sibylla, another envoy. Plus, in the original Roman myth, it wasn't Remus who became the founder of Rome. It was his twin Romulus, or in this case, Nibirius. I'm digressing a little bit here, but it's kind of funny how many times Hoyoverse have used the exact same Faust plot in their games. If you're interested in a video focused on how Hoyoverse has used Faust in their stories, please comment below and I'll add it to my to-do list. But yeah, that was the gist of Wolfie's adventure in the Genshin world. Phew, that was long. Originally, I wanted to make a fourth part of the video to be about the Hexenzirkel, but you know what? That is long enough already. So let's end it here for now, and I'll split the fourth part about the backgrounds and capacities of the Hexenzirkel into another video. So, what do you think about Wolfie's story and the fall of the Seelie Kingdom? Did you enjoy the references to Andersen's stories and Faust in Imaginarium theater? What do you think about Microsoft Docs text-to-speech voice? Which is your favorite xanthine, caffeine, or theobromine? Please comment and subscribe so that I can one day afford a better text-to-speech service.